You've gained what must be called a cult following over this side of the Atlantic now, as well as, of course, your own. Thanks to your, what can be described as an untiring set of coverage of the counting of the presidential election. How do you feel about your newfound UK celebritydom?
I'm grateful and I'm personally flattered. I think most of the interest is not because of me, it's because of we had such a wild election in the middle of a pandemic with a colorful president, now former president, and a fascinating campaign for the Democrats as well. Joe Biden may not be as colorful or as controversial, but giant policy shifts now. So, to the degree that people found my guidance helpful through the election, I'm grateful for that. Glad to have friends across the pond as well as on this side of the pond. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. You were called a chart throb. I don't know if that expression managed to make it back over to your side of the pond as well. A heartthrob, chart throb. Do you enjoy your, perhaps even your new sex symbol status?
I would take that as an exaggeration, but again, I'm grateful. I'm 57 years old. So if I could be a sex symbol to some at this stage of my life, I guess I'm grateful for that. Again, I think that's part of the excitement of the drama of the election, but so be it. Sure, I'll take it.
Okay, let's talk about those days because they were sort of 4 or 5 incredible days, weren't they? After voting had finished and before we had that final result on the following Saturday when the networks, including your own, finally called it for Joe Biden. First of all, how much sleep did you actually get over those 5 days?
Not much, on average, 2.5, 3 hours a night. It's adrenaline at that point. You know that when there's a big story, you're just strap in. I anticipated coming in, it would be a 2 or 3 day count. It ended up being a 5 or 6 day count if you want to carry it through, but 5 days where we were wall to wall. And adrenaline just has to carry you through at that point because the first night I got 2.5 hours sleep and it was a nervous sleep because your brain is still counting. You're still asking yourself questions even as you doze off to sleep. So it's not a peaceful sleep. The second day I think was 3 hours. The night after that, we thought it was possible. The third day we might know more. So I slept less even though I didn't have to get back to work quite as early, so I could get up at home and do some research. Adrenaline kicks in. It's a big story. It's the playoffs, if you will, if you use a sports analogy. And so you just rally for it, and you know that someday it will end, and then you'll get sleep, but you're not quite sure when.
And of course, you spent almost the entirety of that 5 days when you went in a fitful sleep at your famous magic wall, which you became very well known for. Can you just let us in a couple of secrets about the magic wall? I personally, as a political journalist, am fascinated to know, do you have a little voice in your ear telling you all these wonderful facts and figures to spiel about, or are you doing it all in your head then and there?
It's a combination of things. There's a fantastic technology team that works on the software and the presentation parts of it. That's all done, of course, before you're on television, but I'm beyond grateful. I can never find the words to express my thanks, both for the programmers who write the programs and then the people who help me, producers who help me fine tune it, and who, when I have my crazy whims or I need this, or the story changes, and you think we thought we were going to be doing a lot of this demographic group or these states or this income group, but the story has changed. Can you quickly help me go through the programming or find access to this? The team is fantastic. On election nights, it's largely has to be my brain and my instincts and my experience. Not that there's a control room producer who might say, while you were in Pennsylvania, some new results came in Ohio. So if I have the full state of Pennsylvania zoomed out on the map, at that point, I can't see Ohio because I have Pennsylvania full. When you go back to the 50-state map, and you'll see this frequently, where I'm talking, usually to Wolf Blitzer, I'm talking about one state, but out of the corner of my eye, I see something has changed somewhere else. And I'll just say, hang on, Wolf, let's go over here. And just you follow the colors, you follow the data. As I always liken it, it's like being on a roller coaster blindfolded. You don't know where you're going. You don't know, it's going to begin and it's going to end. And it's going to be some sharp turns in the middle of it. And you just go through it. Practice helps, experience helps to try to keep your calm. But this was a particularly wild ride because not only did you have a fascinating election, but because of the different pandemic voting circumstances, different rules in every state, different ways to count the vote in just about every state, that you had to be, the premium for me was to stay calm, remember the rules, and just be methodical and ask people for patience because you knew it was going to be a bumpy ride.
I think you were one of the first, if not the first, to actually pioneer the magic wall. It's repeated all over the world now. Everyone's got one over here now. But it was back in 2008, the first, first Obama victory. I think you first used a magic wall.
That was our first campaign, and I was afraid of it at first, to tell you the truth. It's like anything, our lives, think about whatever you do for a living, anyone listening. whatever you do for a living, your life has changed so dramatically in the last year with the pandemic, but in the last 10, 15, 20 years with technology. Just your phone. Think about your phone 15 years ago as opposed to your phone now. Now it's a supercomputer. You can talk to anybody around the world. It most likely has, a 3-lens camera in it. And so technology can be frightening, especially if you think you're reasonably good at your job and you're comfortable in your job, and then they bring this brand new piece of technology in that revolutionizes what you do. It's a little frightening at first. But I learned from it, and I hope I become comfortable with it. I hope I've become useful to viewers in explaining the roadmap of a presidential election and how different states carry different weight, if you will, because of our unique system, the electoral college system. And some counties within a state are more important than other counties within a state because of swing voters or their demographics or the population size. But the technology itself was overwhelming to learn at first. But we realized very early on in the 2008 primaries, remember that was Obama versus Clinton. It was high drama. And they were very close. A number of states were very, very close. And a number of states were like we lived through in 2020, where one candidate took an early lead, but by the end of the night, it was a very different race. And so you had to understand the states, and you had to understand the complexity, and you had to have caution. And the technology, as we went from primary night to primary night to primary night in that cycle, I learned so much just in the first few weeks of using the wall. Number one, how it would help me communicate on television, but number two, how I could learn from it. It's a live data feed. I can any available source of data, I can reach out and touch. My hands or the mouse, click, boom, go get it. And the more I realized that my hands could reach into a computer or reach into a library or reach into an encyclopedia to find information, the more I realize that, the more I understand what a gift the wall is. And hopefully we've improved it every cycle since.
You miss your wall when you're not at it.
I do sometimes. It gets personal. My old colleague, Larry King, who we've lost, obviously, he was the first person to call it the magic wall. And the first person to call it a she back on his program back in the day.
Oh, it's a she.
We had a little hiccup, just a programming glitch. It was just like a Zoom you see now, a Zoom lag we're all used to in the pandemic. It had a little programming glitch, and I just patted it on the side. And Larry said something like, "Oh, she's in a mood tonight." And I said, "Oh, she'll be fine, Larry." And so she became a she.
You haven't given her a name.
I'm not. She's magic.
Okay. And of course, you've been nominated for a pretty prestigious award over here in the UK. In fact, you're the first overseas presenter ever to be nominated for an RTS Television Journalism Award, Network Presenter of the Year.
A fabulous honor. And Clive is the winner of the BBC. And to be in that competition alone was fantastic for me and a great honor and privilege to me. To be the first overseas presenter to make it to the finals and to be nominated was a great honor. And again, personally, that's a great honor for me. And I'm grateful for the judges, and I'm grateful for the viewers, and I'm grateful for the conversation that somehow got me on the judges' radar. I also think, again, it's a testament, number one, to the enormity of the U.S. election story, the enormity of the interest in Trump and the interest in Biden. Let's not underestimate the new president and all the change he will bring to the world as well. And also, I think it's just proof, and you know this because you've been through the Brexit conversation, which is a uniquely UK conversation, but it's also a globalization conversation about the pressures that the global economy and the shrinking of our global community has put on people. That I'm the first overseas presenter to be nominated is a great personal honor, but it's also proof to me of how much more interconnected we are now than when I started doing this, 35 years ago.
Let's talk a little bit about CNN's relationship with the now former president, Donald Trump. You were, of course, the original and one and only fake news. Others then got that sobriquet too. But when did things first start to go bad between CNN and Trump?
Well, Trump is not the first, and he will not be the last. Our history, global history, is full of politicians and leaders who attack the media or who attack the truth or who attack institutions to achieve their political goals. So the tactic is not new. It's quite familiar. As I like to say, Trump puts everything on steroids. And part of that is him and how he personally conducts himself, the coarseness, the sometimes meanness, the personal nature of his insulting approach to just about every relationship in his life. And then also the explosion of technology, the social media, that a person of Trump's generation figured out how to use social media as such a cudgel, even a chainsaw, is ironic in some ways, but he did. And again, you know this personally. When you are attacked, you should, my view anyway in journalism is do not take it personally. It's about him. It's about his goal. Where is he trying to go? As long as the facts are on your side, you're in a good place. So don't take it personally. But also don't take it in the sense that you have to defend your brand and you have to defend your truth. And so stand up to it when it happens, but calmly. and just present the facts. The president says this is fake news. No, it's not. Here are the facts. Do it dispassionately, do it methodically, and because of him, do it repeatedly.
Let me just put it to you that sometimes, if not you personally, then CNN maybe just played into his narrative by arguing with him, by picking or responding to that fight with him. You helped stand up his argument about the East Coast liberal media that was against people like him, and almost you forwarded his cause.
This narrative sometimes gets overplayed in the sense that, if we're arguing about something little, if we did that, then maybe we overdid it. But when we're arguing about attacks on democratic institutions, when we're arguing about attacks on voters, when you're arguing attacks on just basic truths about the number of people who cross the US-Mexico border, about who they are, about how decent the overwhelming majority of them are. They may be breaking the law. I'm not excusing law breaking, but they're not rapists. They're not murderers. He was making that stuff up. That's our job. That's our job. He also engineered a hostile takeover of a major historic political party in the United States of America. So he was a giant story. There were times when he was getting more attention than his Republican rivals, when he was getting more attention than his Democratic opponent in 2016, for example, in Secretary Clinton. And again, you can go back and argue those days, and I might agree some days it was a little disproportionate this way or that way. I think in the big picture, we're in the news business. He was news. He was new. I always say, when things get complicated, you have to go back to your basic roots. I always say we're in the new business, right? We take new things, we slap an S on them, that makes them news. And he's news, and he's constantly making news. Are there times when we follow him into the gossip pitch or we follow him into the briar patch? Probably. I think all of the media is guilty of that, and not just in Trump's case. It's, again, everything's amplified under the age of Trump. But by and large, when truth is under attack, when facts are under attack, when civil and civic institutions are under attack, it is our job to stand up for the truth and stand up for facts. And he picked a lot of those fights. And so, yes, we were in a lot of fights with him.
John King, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been very generous with your time.
The pleasure is more than mine. Thank you.